Well, in what comes as interim relief for the centre, the Supreme Court refused to stay the amended citizenship law as of now. Hearing 144 cases over the new law, the Supreme Court has asked the centre to reply in a matter of 4 weeks on all CAA-related pleas except those from Assam and Tripura. The bench, comprising of CJI SA Bobde, Justices Abdul Nazir and Sanjeev Khanna, said that petitions from Assam and Tripura will be heard separately. The centre has been given 2 weeks for filing of replies over the two states' petitions. Now, the Apex Court has also restrained high courts from dealing with matters related to CAA and said that it will consider the setting up of a 5-judge constitution bench to hear the matter soon. The Supreme Court will now hear the pleas in the last week of February.
Supreme Court, yes, though they didn't give the stay order for a persons, they gave a 4 weeks times to government to file their reply. They have not filed it. There is somebody suggested even referring to the constitutional bench also. Court has not decided whether it should be referred or not. So I hope that government will stay on their own, so that government on their own should stay their operation. It is better for the government if they stay their operation till the matter is disposed by the Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court has refused to grant an interim stay at the moment on CAA, NRC or NPR, and the government is now hands-free to implement these laws. If you could clarify that for us.
Yeah, normally the Supreme Court does not stay the operation of a law passed by Parliament because there is an implied, there is a presumption of constitutionality. A law passed by Parliament is presumed to be constitutionally valid. Okay. Unless it is ruled otherwise.
Okay.
So that is normally what the court does. Court presumes that the law passed by Parliament is constitutionally valid.
So it's presumed to be valid unless the Supreme Court goes ahead and decides otherwise.
Goes ahead and, yeah. So that does not mean that the Supreme Court cannot strike it down.
Sure.
The Supreme Court can strike it down if they find it unconstitutional. But so far as granting stay is concerned, normally what we have found is that the Supreme Court does not stay the operation of the law on this ground, that it is presumed to be constitutionally valid. And that is precisely what the Supreme Court has done in this case.
So essentially, the Supreme Court has refused at this point to stay the implementation of the Citizenship Amendment Act despite several requests from the petitioners during the hearing. The top court has also indicated that they are in favour of sending this to a 5-judge constitution bench, which means that there will be greater scrutiny about the constitutional validity of the amendment made to the citizenship law. The Supreme Court at this point has also in fact categorized some of these petitions, particularly in Assam and Tripura. They've ensured that it's categorized separately, which means they'll pass perhaps an interim order on those. Let's take this across to Anisha Mathur for more details. Anisha, just break down for us exactly what are the big takeaways. The government will have some sort of reprieve because as of now there's no stay, but perhaps 4 weeks from now, after they file the report, we will get more clarity on exactly where the Supreme Court stands on the argument about the constitutionality of the amendment made to the citizenship law.
Well, yes, so we need to look at these issues separately. First of all, the court has very clearly said that they would be considering whether to send this entire matter to a 5-judge constitution bench, which will hear this entire larger issue of the constitutionality of the CAA. However, in the interim, several petitions have also asked for a stay on the implementation of the CAA itself. Particularly the petitioners from the northeast, the Assam and Tripura petitioners, have raised the point that the CAA and particularly its implementation will have a serious impact on the demographic structure of these states, which have accords with the central government which regulate entry and the rights in these states themselves. So the court has agreed to sort of consider these two states separately with regard to whether a stay order can be passed when it comes to implementation of the CAA in these states themselves, particularly since the Attorney General has said that the CAA amendment itself has given a separate status to Assam, and this entire issue can be considered. Secondly, what the court has said is that it could consider sort of creating a zonal segregation as when it comes to specific issues relating to the implementation of the CAA. The petitioners also pointed out that at least in Uttar Pradesh, lists are already being created about who can be given accelerated citizenship and who would not be eligible. So there several petitioners, including parties represented by senior advocates Abhishek Manu Singhvi, Kapil Sibal and Shyam Devan, have raised the point that if these people who are put in these lists are granted citizenship, or if somebody else is put on a doubtful citizenship list, then their rights would be directly affected, and that is why there needs to be some kind of interim order to make sure that the final decision on the citizenship issue is for any particular person is not taken while this question is before the Supreme Court. So there is a chance that the court may pass orders on this issue as well, but all of this argument will now be heard in 5 weeks when the matter comes up before the court.
Anisha also explained to us about exactly how the Supreme Court has decided to in fact separate some of the petitions. This is about categorizing these places. With regards to states like Assam and Tripura, the Supreme Court has in fact categorized it separately. They've pushed these petitions aside from the anti-CAA petitions that have been filed by some others.
Well, let me just correct you a little bit there. They have not pushed these petitions aside. As I was just discussing, these petitions have raised certain specific issues with regard to the Assam Accords, the Tripura Accords, and the fact that there are already challenges pending in the Supreme Court with regard to the shift in the date of the NRC. Remember, the Assam Students' Union and several other parties had also earlier come to the Supreme Court saying that this NRC process is creating problems in the state. They have also raised the question of whether because the Assam Accords have had the date of 1971 as the cutoff date, then it was changed to 1985. But now with the CAA saying that everyone who entered India by 2014 cutoff date would be eligible for citizenship, that point is being strenuously argued by these petitions, saying that you cannot go against what these accords and agreements say. So on that point, whether or not they will get any special consideration, the court has decided to sort of segregate the Assam and Tripura matters and has asked the petitioners to give them a list of just how many matters have been filed by persons, NGOs, political parties in these two states, so that they could consider whether to give certain separate interim directions when it comes to these states. But we also, what is important is that while there is no stay on the implementation of the CAA, the court has indicated that it could possibly hold in-chamber meetings with the lawyers representing various parties and segregate this entire issue to different zones and different issues, different legal issues, and there could be a situation where the court could work out a procedure by the next date of hearing on how various aspects of this entire debate need to be addressed.
Okay, Anisha, thanks for breaking down the details there of what the Supreme Court has had to say on the Citizenship Amendment Act petitions. Moving on, the Delhi Lieutenant Governor has stepped up efforts to break the Shaheen Bagh deadlock. After meeting an 8-member delegation from the protest site, Delhi LG Anil Baijal said that he will raise their concerns with the centre. This comes as Shaheen Bagh protesters called for a Bharat Bandh on January 29th if the centre does not send a representative to the protest site. Yesterday, despite the LG's appeal to call off the protest, the delegation of anti-CAA protesters vowed to continue their agitation. However, they did agree to allow the passage of school buses and ambulances through the blocked road, and this comes after a matter of 37 days. The anti-CAA stir led by women at Shaheen Bagh has become a nightmare for commuters as the arterial road that connects Delhi, Noida and Faridabad has been closed for over a month now.
I am right now in Shaheen Bagh, where women have been sitting on the streets of the national capital since 38 days now with a simple demand that until and unless the government doesn't take back the Citizenship Amendment Act back, we are not going to move an inch back from here. Let's speak to the dadis who have now become the face of this protest and let's check with them what do they have to say about the Supreme Court's word on this. दादी, आप कल लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर से मिलने गए थे, आप कल एलजी से मिलने गए थे दिल्ली में, तो आप लोग कल मिलने गए थे. आज सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बोला है कि 4 हफ्ते का हमने समय दिया है, 4 हफ्ते में कोई स्टे नहीं लगाएंगे, 5वें हफ्ते में ये डिसीजन लेंगे. तो आपका उस पर क्या?
बस हमने तो ये कहना CAA अनार से APR वापस ले लो, हम उठ जाएंगे. 4 हफ्तों से पहले उठ जाएंगे, इसे वापस करवा दो. हम 4 हफ्ते बिना बैठे हैं. जो यूं ना उठाएगी 4 हफ्तों से बाद में भी यूं ही रहा तो बैठे रहेंगे.
4 हफ्ते क्यों, अगर सुप्रीम कोर्ट ये बोलते और 2 महीना पीछे तो हमें यही बैठना, हमें हटना नहीं है. जब तक ये हमारा NRC और MP काला कानून वापस नहीं लेंगे हम नहीं हटेंगे.
All the women sitting here on the streets of the national capital for more than 38 days now are in a unanimous tone saying that we welcome the Supreme Court's decision, whatever that whatever the Supreme Court says, we are going to respect the order. But until and unless the central government takes back the Citizenship Amendment Act, we are not going to move an inch back. With video journalist Deepak Gupta in Shaheen Bagh, I'm Tanushree Pandey for India Today.
And we're getting you exclusive details now on the Mangaluru airport bomb suspect who has surrendered before the police. Aditya Rao is an engineer and did his MBA. He was also arrested in 2018 for making a hoax bomb call to the Bengaluru airport. It was then investigated and found to be an act of revenge since they did not give him a security guard job. He was jailed in 2018 for 6 months for making that hoax call, the hoax bomb call to the Bengaluru airport. Well, the flip-flops of US President Donald Trump on the Kashmir issue continues. On the sidelines of the ongoing World Economic Forum in Switzerland's Davos, Trump once again made his mediation pitch on the issue of Kashmir. Reacting to Trump's comment, India has again reiterated that Kashmir is a bilateral issue. MEA sources have said that for any conversation to take place, Pakistan will have to shun terror first. Trump made the mediation offer after Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan demanded him and the international community to intervene in Kashmir. Trump said that he was closely monitoring the situation in Kashmir. This is not the first time that Trump has offered to mediate, but the US has always officially maintained that Kashmir is a bilateral issue.
Thank you very much, and it's great to be with a very good friend of mine, the Prime Minister of Pakistan. We're going to be talking about trade and many other things, but trade is going to be of very, very paramount importance, and we're doing more trade as it turns, and we're working together on some borders, and we're talking about Kashmir and the relation to what's going on with Pakistan and India, and if we can help, we certainly will be helping. We've been watching that and following it very, very closely.
Yes, there are issues we want to talk about. Main issue, of course, is Afghanistan, and also, of course, India. It is a big issue for us in Pakistan. It's a big issue, and of course, we always hope that the US would play its part in resolving it, because no other country can.
बार-बार अमेरिका और डोनाल्ड ट्रंप अगर इस तरह के बयान दे रहे हैं तो हमारी सरकार को संज्ञान लेना चाहिए और उनको बोलना चाहिए इसके बारे में, अपनी आपत्ति दर्ज करानी चाहिए. हम किसी भी प्रकार का बाहरी हस्तक्षेप पाकिस्तान के मामले में बर्दाश्त नहीं करते हैं.
Continuously this kind of a statement is there by the American president. It is very serious. The issue between two countries are bilateral. We never allow any other country to interfere in the matter. But Mr. Trump is always speaking on the issue. It is very serious. It is the responsibility of the Prime Minister Modi ji that he must show the displeasure that this kind of a thing cannot be tolerated, and he should write a letter to American president to show the displeasure and the sentiment of the country people.
Look, given the number of times that Trump has referred to Kashmir, and given the fact that after referring to it, there is really nothing that the Americans have done on the issue. I'm not even sure if it makes sense for us to raise this. He can, keep making these references, and he will keep making these references because it serves his purpose, because he needs to extract something out of the Pakistanis, and if in return for extracting what he wants out of the Pakistanis, he drops them a bone or two to chew on, then I don't see why we need to keep raking up this issue with the Americans and asking them not to get involved. In any case, Trump is a bit of a misguided missile. He shoots his mouth off very often, even when somebody tells him not to. So I don't see any reason why we need to rake this issue.
Well, not the first time that President Trump has come out offering mediation. The only difference this time around is that he was careful in saying that only if India wants help, that he'll be willing to give out his good offices for mediation between India and Pakistan. The United States of America, particularly the leadership, has to understand that it's a complicated relationship, and while they talk about the complications, they should take into account what New Delhi really wants. The statements coming just ahead of his visit to India is certainly not going to go down well with New Delhi, and it is not about the US administration, which is very clear in its statements that they continue to make, that Kashmir is a bilateral issue and has to be resolved bilaterally. It's about the leadership talking. It's President Trump himself making statements and comments with Imran Khan by his side on the issue of Kashmir, and that certainly is not something that is acceptable to the Indian administration. Message very strong from India that Kashmir is a bilateral issue and will be resolved only bilaterally. India will not accept any third-party intervention, but more importantly, if Kashmir has to be discussed, Pakistan will first have to shun terrorism, which means talks and terror cannot go together. And let's also listen in to what Trump has had to say earlier on the issue of Kashmir and his previous offers of mediation.
It's really up to Prime Minister Modi. And I met with Prime Minister Khan. I got along great with, I think they're fantastic people. Khan and Modi, I would imagine they can get along very well. But if they wanted somebody to intervene or to help them, and I spoke with Pakistan about that, and I spoke frankly to India about it, but that's been going on, that battle, for a long time. If I can, if they wanted me to, I would certainly intervene, yeah. And Kashmir is a very complicated place. You have the Hindus and you have the Muslims, and I wouldn't say they get along so great. And I'm going to be with Prime Minister Modi. I'll be with him over the weekend in France. So, I think we're helping the situation, but there's tremendous problems between those two countries, as you know, and I will do the best I can to mediate or do something. Great relationship with both of them, but they are not exactly friends at this moment. Complicated situation. A lot has to do with religion. Religion's a complicated subject.
Well, the US Senate has rejected repeated Democratic Party attempts to secure new evidence in US President Donald Trump's impeachment trial, which started last night. Now, the Republican-led Senate rejected 3 Democratic bids on Tuesday to obtain documents as well as evidence in the impeachment trial. Democrats want current and former Trump administration officials such as ex-National Security Advisor John Bolton to testify. The new resolution will give the House impeachment managers and the president's team 3 days each to make their 24 hours of trial arguments. Trump is charged with abuse of power and obstructing of the Congress following allegations that he used his office to withhold military aid to Ukraine to obtain dirt on his political rival Joe Biden. At the World Economic Forum in Davos yesterday, Trump dismissed the accusations against him as just a hoax.
That whole thing is a hoax. It goes nowhere because nothing happened. The only thing we've done is a great job. We have the strongest country in the world by far, and it was going in the wrong direction. We have the greatest economy we've ever had in the history of our country. And I'm in Europe today because we're bringing a lot of other companies into our country with thousands of jobs, millions of jobs in many cases. So that whole thing is a total hoax.
And the Swedish teenage climate activist Greta Thunberg and US President Donald Trump faced off over climate change at the ongoing World Economic Forum in Davos. Trump referred to climate activists as prophets of doom in a keynote speech at the forum, where environment sustainability was the main theme. Trump, however, did not refer directly to Greta, who was interestingly seated in the audience. As Trump vowed that US would join an initiative to plant 1 trillion trees, Greta said that planting trees was good, but simply not enough. Greta also added that empty words and promises from world leaders will not make any difference. Fight against environmental destruction is at the top of the agenda at the annual economic summit in Davos.
This is not a time for pessimism. This is a time for optimism. Fear and doubt is not a good thought process, because this is a time for tremendous hope and joy and optimism and action. But to embrace the possibilities of tomorrow, we must reject the perennial prophets of doom and their predictions of the apocalypse.
We're not telling you to offset your emissions by just paying someone else to plant trees in places like Africa, while at the same time forests like the Amazon are being slaughtered at an infinitely higher rate. Planting trees is good, of course, but it's nowhere near enough of what is needed, and it cannot replace real mitigation and rewilding nature.